Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. We've got a very exciting segment here where, for those of you who were here this morning and I talked about this AI journey, we're not on it alone. It's not something that we have all the answers to. You as customers don't have all the answers to, but together we can bring a lot to the table and discover how to really go about starting that journey together. And I'm joined in a moment by a very important partner of ours, Slalom, which is a global SI that does consulting, technology, business, and strategy consulting to really help companies, focus on delivering faster, being able to dream bigger, and deliver better tomorrows for their clients. And the two folks that are joining me in a moment are Carrie Steyer and Amos Tenema. And Carrie's the general manager of Slalom Chicago. Carrie's highly analytical and uses that gift to help her with her customers and her clients solve their more complex business and technology problems. And Amos, among other things, is a published author and has deep expertise in customer experience and contact center technologies. And Slalom was chosen as our partner of the year for 2 consecutive years. So we're very excited to be joined by the two of them. So please welcome to the stage, Carrie and Amos. Please come up. And we're going to spend about the next 40 minutes discussing how they've helped bring technologies to bear within organizations and really help them achieve those business goals that they were after. And I'm going to ask a few questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience, and you can ask as well. So welcome.
Thanks.
Very pleased to have both of you here, and thanks for the partnership that's been so well received for our clients.
Thanks, Dan.
Love to hear. I think the crowd would love to hear a little bit from each of you, kind of as your background and what got you to Slalom and why Slalom has such a great value proposition for clients.
Sure, I'll kick us off and then I'll pass it off to you. So as you said, Carrie Steyer, and yes, I am the general manager of Chicago for Slalom, but my background is probably more why you have me here in terms of talking about AI. So I have a math degree, which the reality is the math hasn't changed in the 30 years since I got my degree of what actually populates and makes AI work. And been in consulting a good portion of my life. But went to Slalom about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, for a few reasons. One, I love my values match their values. So we have a list of values out there of do what's right always, to innovate, to inspire, stay humble and curious, those kinds of things, and smile. Smile is one of our values, which is sort of fun. And they align to mine and allows me to do the great work that we do for our clients and create impacts for our clients with teams of people that have those same goals and those same things in mind. I'll let you share a little bit and then I'll talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, I'm Amos, and I started as a software developer, believe it or not. So I used to sell software into contact centers in the 90s. And I've had every job in and around this industry. I've run large contact center operations. But the last 10 years, I've been in the thought leadership and consultants, writing about this stuff. And I get excited about the power of what the contact center can do for the organization. And at Slalom, I lead our contact center transformation practice. And we help organizations think about anywhere from strategy to implementation and beyond, how they can better utilize their contact center. So this topic about AI is top of mind. Almost every client we talk to in some way is thinking about automation and how to use this growing technology to improve their business.
You mentioned it's growing technology, and I know you've said a few times, Dan, it's sort of new, and it is new to some parts of the business, but the reality is it's been around a really long time. As I said, the math hasn't changed in 30 years, but what has changed is the ability to implement it so much more seamlessly to such a wider audience of folks and a lot of additional business problems. I had a chance I've spoken on this for years, actually. So as we were just talking about how years ago I spoke at a Gartner conference and talked about, that was a time when the data scientist was the sexiest job to have, and so I got to claim that. But the reality is it's been out there. What's happened though with the cloud is it's made it more accessible, and the compute power that exists to be able to drive things faster, create larger models, and all of those things has made it accessible for all.
Great. Yeah, and when we talked this morning a little bit about when people hear AI, automation, the first thing they think of is, oh, cost reduction. What are they missing in that first assessment of what we mean when we as vendors want to say automation? They think, oh, you're just looking to cut costs. What's missing in that?
Well, and cost reduction in their mind usually means you're going to cut people too. And it's, I have a 12-year-old daughter. I told her I was coming to talk about AI and machine learning. She's like, oh, you mean robots? Can I get one to clean my room? So she was actually excited about cutting people. But the reality is, while there is, yes, optimization of costs and things like that, there's also the ability to better serve your customers, to better serve your employees, and to actually raise folks up to do higher level jobs and higher level thinking. And one of the things we do at Slalom is think about how do we start with that human in mind and think about the human-centered design. So whether it be an employee or a customer, depending on which business problem you're working on solving, is starting with understanding what that needs to look like so that you can, as you put it this morning, transform and delight while you optimize your costs. But that really begins with understanding what the human is looking for, what the clients are looking for, and keeping them in the center of what's going on.
Yeah, so if you contextualize in the contact center, we've been doing automation for a long time. My first initial clients when I started, most of the work I did was around how do we get people to use our IVR or their phone tree. In fact, I used to call it, how do you build me a better phone tree jail so that I trap this customer there and God forbid they ever speak with a human. So that's where we started, but we are not there today. In fact, talking about cost savings almost misses the point because if you do this right, the cost savings will come. So we encourage clients to think about this, this gift of this, the power we've gotten really from an offensive place. If I think about the call center that we now call contact center, we started from, I am going to force you to use this terrible phone tree that everyone hates, to now, we want to build an experience for you that, yes, there's automation, but the automation is almost in the background. It's more about, I can use this to identify who you are, what you want, anticipate where I should transfer you to provide that seamless experience. So we always discourage clients from starting from the cost savings. Let's just assume that will be there. It's really around how can I utilize this technology to improve the experience. And if you do, you can now have your cake and eat it too, right? So it was, I either do automation or I delight the customer. And with this, we now get into a place where we can do both. We can provide efficiency and do customer delight. So that's what gets me excited about what's possible now that we didn't have back then.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, Amos, and that's something, even when we talk about IVAs, we often put that synonymous, IVAs, self-service. The self-service implementation of IVAs, while it's important, we have certain clients that will say, oh, great, I want to force my customers to use, and when I hear terms like that or comments like that, it's like, no, it's help them have that choice if they prefer that, but always give them, and enough will in most use cases, so that you have the ability then to offer the human and empathetic element that comes with that to the customers that want that and need that. So I think oftentimes we look at ways we get so caught up in the cost cutting that you want to kind of force people, and then they talk about containment rates and making sure they stayed there. And it's almost like, well, maybe containment rate isn't the right measure.
Right.
In some cases, it's, I want to put them there. If they happen to be able to solve their issue, great. But I probably have an ability to then route them to a much more specifically skilled agent that can handle their issue. Even if I haven't fully contained and finished the process, I may have collected enough information that I can get that to somebody that can help them very quickly and easily and have that experience be delightful because they say, wow, everything I just did with the machine got transferred over and I'm now being helped by a human that has that at their disposal. So
yeah, I think Dan, to build off of that point, I don't think we appreciate the paradigm shift we are having. We used to have this human versus bot. I either put you in the automated system or human. As Carrie mentioned, it's about the humans, the customer, your agent, back office, all of them. And now this notion of I'm either on the automated phone system or with the human is no longer true. It's a blend-in where I might start an interaction with an automated system, then a human is assistant in the background, then I go back and it's a back and forth. So it's like, it's beyond omni-channel, it's sort of this uni-channel. I'm just having a conversation with you. At times it's a bot, at times it's a human, I don't really care. You're delivering that, and I think that's what is so impactful with utilizing this technology.
Yeah, and not only care, sometimes may not even be able to tell. The reality is the language models that we use for some of the language processing have gotten so much better and so much larger that it doesn't take as much to train them, but you need to train them still. As we were talking about earlier, and I need to be trained on how to talk to my teenager because I don't understand the language. So just like that, you need to train the language model. But they've been so much bigger that they can actually, I was told they can actually write an essay for you now at this point, and you wouldn't know whether it was written by a bot or by a human, which I could have used back in school when I was told I was write like a data scientist.
They would have known the difference between my writing and the bot.
Yeah, exactly,
The bot would be better. So much better.
Exactly. But so it becomes seamless, as well as like you said, Amos, is thinking about what is that human experience and what is the feeling that you want them to walk away with.
Right, great. Help us, maybe you can share some examples of specific clients and how they implemented automation and what results they achieved from it.
Sure, and the key there is to start with what's that outcome? What's the end in mind that you want to achieve? And I'm going to talk a little bit outside of contact center space, and I'll let you share some clients there. But we've done some work with, and this is another term from this morning that you used, was the collaborative intelligence. So we've done some work with a quick service restaurant. And what they wanted to do is make every restaurant just as good as the other one. So by taking and understanding what made a restaurant good, by taking all of their foundational data, being able to drive some models with that, to be able to predict how much they should be making at what time and how it should be served and when it should be ready and those kinds of things, they were able to take the knowledge of some of their best restaurant managers and create models that helped each restaurant operate that way. So thinking about AI and being able to use for any kind of use case, that was a great one for us to think about. How do they do truly collaborative intelligence and be able to drive that across the system?
Yeah, I'll tell a story in healthcare, in the provider space. So the problem they were trying to solve is they serviced Medicare patients. And if some of you are in that industry, it's, if you're selling snacks or something, if you do a bad job in customer service, customers stop buying from you and maybe your revenue goes down. In this space, you go into Medicare jail, there's, patients can file complaints and it's fines and it can be quite serious. So again, back to the theme of utilizing this to play offense and not defense that we in the contact center typically do. It's that how do we utilize this technology and process to identify these patients before they go to the federal government and complain and file these complaints. So all of a sudden, right? So all of us here, 5-9 customers, you have the ACD data. We can identify these customers. And I encourage clients to start wherever they are. So there is a low fidelity version of this is where we're starting, which is simply just present the data. These are the 500 clients we suspect will be filing the CTM complaints. Let's, start in with manually doing some interventions. And then the next piece becomes, can we utilize that data, combining data from your ACD system and your CRM system to now route these customers to a different place? And then there is even the next version, kind of the roadmap we're laying out for them that says, in real time, as the customer is having conversations, right, we can listen to those conversations, understand the sentiment, and then utilize these systems to then make suggestions, right, to the agent who's dealing with this interaction. So I think these are the ways where we can begin to use this and let's get out of the box of every time we talk about automation and AI, it's another chatbot that most of us hate. And let's begin to look outside of just those interactions and really put this technology to use in a way that will impact not just that customer, but down the road and build the best experience for them.
Amas, you brought up something in terms of making sure there's integration across the data and all of that. And the reality is some of the things that are harder in this space is the foundational pieces of making sure you have the data you need to answer the question or solve the business case that you're working on. And that foundational piece sometimes takes a whole lot more time than even just training a model. And so thinking about that first is super important to get you to a place where it's easy to run
right.
once you get that foundation in place.
Yeah, I mean, part of why we work well together is some of what we're saying here can seem pretty simple, and they are simple, but they're not easy. Right? So you can't just go buy it off the shelf. They're not a pair of Nikes, right? You instead have to, yes, you need the technology, this process. So that's where we come in showing up and understanding, like what Carrie said, which is data is the oil that makes AI work. If you have garbage data, you're going nowhere. The reason why, not to get on chatbots again, I think my colleague who runs chatbots in Slalom is here, so I don't want to offend him. But most chatbots suck, right? And the reason they do is not the technology. The reason they do is what we've all heard this week, which is, have you been thoughtful about the data? This chatbot doesn't know your business. It's like a toddler. Do you have the data? Do you have clean data for it to digest information? Can it access systems to do workflow orchestration? So that's a really key part of what we do, is helping clients get that it's not something you just buy off the shelf and yeah, it works. There's a practice around how we can really help you get the benefits you're looking for.
Yeah. And Amas, you brought up a point about, when we think about AI and the automation and IVAs in particular, everything has been talked about as real time, right? It's real time to help the consumer on the other end get their answer. It's used to help the agent in real time fetch data and deliver them, next best action or coaching or anticipated answers. And what we're finding is having the ability to listen into conversations and pull the insight information, the data. We're actually looking, and some of you may have gone to one of our breakout sessions on, Callan spoke this morning about the future of what's coming next year, but this concept of a AI hub and being able to collect the insights from the conversations that are occurring and then use that as a prescriptive tool for us as the vendor to say, aha, we know what's going on in your contact centers, we know what's being asked for, we can help you identify which things would be candidates for automation. And the reason that's important is we oftentimes go to our customers and, the salesperson's gung-ho and they go right in there and they say, great, what are the most common questions in your contact center? Because we can help you divert those over and offer self-service for those. And the customers are kind of going, well, this is really common, and then after the first couple, they're kind of guessing and anticipating. And well, what percentage of the calls are those? We don't know. The information's not good. So the data, like you said, it can be garbage, and if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. But by listening in and just collecting the insights and applying the natural language, the NLP and NLU to the conversations, we can go back to them and say, did you know 26% of your calls are asking about this and 14% are asking about that? This one's a little more complex, but this one's real simple. The answer is 90% of the time, the answer is X. Let's go solve for that. And so I think AI is not only going to help us in the consumer and the agent in real time, it's going to help us prescribe technologies that ultimately can change the way we deliver an experience.
Well, and to add on to that, so yes, definitely, how do we create the better experience in the contact center? But the other thing those insights could do is actually go back to product development or back to sales or back to the whole rest of the business, because the contact center is getting customer information and the customer data, which drives insights. Those insights could actually be proactively fixed before it even becomes a call to the contact center. And so that's some of the places that we're seeing some exciting work as well.
Yeah, I'll give an example. We're working with the hotel chain. So it starts from a place of, can I automate conversations, right? So whether that's chat, et cetera. But what that led us to is the data starts to show that in their use case, if you think about a hotel and we're all staying here, this one-to-one conversation doesn't always work. What you really want is one-to-many. So you can imagine you're in the hotel and you need towels. You might be interacting with the contact center, but how about we just skip the middleman instead of transferring? Let everyone within the facility actually see that conversation, so that if there's an employee who is by your room, he or she can just chime in and say, I'll be there in 5 minutes. So you're having a conversation with this brand. It's no longer one-to-one. You can't get that with your preconceived notions, right? You kind of have to study the data. And then this is the beauty of what I just described was impossible just a few years ago. And this is the exciting thing about why we're here in this conference, the combination of Five9 and taking data from CRM and all of the partnerships that they bring to bear, and with folks like us helping you think through how to orchestrate all of this. You will be shocked at what is possible utilizing this technology.
Yeah. And Carrie, you brought up a great point about using the insights of the conversations that are happening within a contact center to take back to other departments. And I can think of the perfect example, like at Five9, would be listening to our customer support calls, understanding what about our product isn't working to the customer satisfaction, and then feeding that back into product so they can then make that part of the improvement. Because when we go to product and we build out the roadmap, guess what? They're usually going out and talking to customers and focus groups and understanding. And guess what? There's a whole bunch of data that they can just collect every day from the contact center and probably minimize what they need to do externally.
Exactly.
So looking at that, tell us about some of the 24/7 benefits that customers see in automating functions. I mean, any clients of yours that have said, oh gosh, we've gone in and applied automation and it's helped us get away from having hours of operation. Any examples of that?
You start.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty about AI is, it can become your best employee, right? And never ask for a day off, never wants a raise, doesn't take time off. So absolutely, one of the obvious benefits is extending hours of operation, being available in areas you wouldn't. But I think one thing I don't want to get lost in when we talk about this human and automation is the automation needs to be human. If I'm to kind of highlight one big game changer we've had over the last few years, as Carrie says, this AI journey is a long one. It's that your automation and your technology now needs to have not just a head, it can reason or what have you, but now needs a heart. That means it needs to also be emotionally intelligent. So we find that works when it's not an FAQ bot that's just spit in, doesn't have any smarts. It works when I have this interaction and it feels like, even though it's 2 a.m, that this person, even though there's not a human behind it, as a heart can tell that I am upset, can tell that I'm excited, and is responding appropriately. That is a much higher bar than where we started, where it was just put some FAQ in there that repeated the same information over and over and over again. So that's where we see it be successful. If, on the other hand, it's one of these dumb automations, then yes, you've extended hours of operation 24/7, but what you've created now is this dichotomy of service quality, which is when I call you or email you 8 to 5, I get this experience. you said you're open 24/7, but when I interact with you at 2 a.m., it's this bot that may have the head, but not the heart part of it. So that's the exciting thing for us is, I think it was you, Carrie, who said you can't tell the difference. That's a very high bar, but we can show you examples of people who are doing it. I called a 1-800 number, and usually I don't call 1-800 numbers in front of young children because I might yell profanity, pressing one and that. But I actually said these words. I said, am I talking to a human, right? And I do this for a living. And that I couldn't, I end up reaching out to the folks who at that organization. That's the highest compliment that I could have paid them, because even I began to wonder, oh my gosh, is this was that good? And I think that's all what we should all aim for, that the automation is every bit as good as the human one, even if it's at 2 a.m.
So I'm going to challenge you. I think it actually should be a slight bit better. We were talking a little bit back in the green room about bias. And one of the things, and I shared this, I think, last year when I spoke too, one of the things about AI that you need to be really careful about is taking the bias that we already have and injecting it into models, because it will just multiply and get worse. So if you actually step back and make sure that you remove those biases as you train the machines and as the machine learning continues to go, they can be better, because we humans have bias in everything that we do. And so I actually do think there's hope for there to be better service in that case in some of those insights.
That would be exceptional. If we
Yeah.
can get to that point, the bots end up being better than the humans. Wow. And then they'll learn how to empathize.
Yes.
And then you won't even know. So why don't we open it up to the crowd? I think we have some runners with microphones that can, there they are at either side. So if there's questions, just raise your hand, as this gentleman here has done, and they'll find you. And questions for
So one of the main questions that I've received a lot, I've been working with the 5.9 product for over 12 years. Very excited about the AI and everything else. And one of the things that I get a lot whenever I'm working with clients is, what level do I have to hire someone to be able to work with the AI automation, to be able to work with the Studio 7, be able to work with all these types of products? And do I have to go look for a specialized person for it?
Yeah, so I would say that there's not a one size fits all, but I believe in citizen data services, which means like deputizing everyone within your organization to be citizen data scientists, meaning we've democratized AI. So AI used to be this mysterious thing that only people like Carrie understood how it worked. And what these technologies like 5.9 has allowed us to do is all the hard work is behind the scenes, and now it's a series of clicks, and I'm building this. He's now 18, but when my son was 16, he built a pretty good chatbot all by himself, not really understanding the underlying technology. So it's the answer of, there are things that with a few clicks, right, someone who is familiar enough with the system and certifying it could do. And then you have more advanced things that then you need. It could be as advanced as you need a data scientist to do the data model, and it may be codes and not clicks.
And I can dovetail on that answer and say, it's really hard to say what level of skill set you need to help administer and manage the system without knowing what it is you're trying to accomplish. If you have a very straightforward and, we sell the IVA with different, gold, silver, platinum, stages. The level of natural language processing and natural language understanding that's required, and then how your data is structured and how the system needs to go fetch and bring that data back to respond to the caller. If it's an IVA, for instance, if it's agent assist, are we going to be able to get the right information back to the agent to help them be more effective? It really depends on a lot of different factors. What I would suggest is, if you work with 5.9, our professional services team, we've got varying levels of skill sets that can absolutely engage and help you with that. And they will then recommend, based on your use case, what kind of skill set you need to hire to manage that on an ongoing basis.
Just to add a little bit, though, as I think about what kind of skill sets you need, or what do you need, what it does, though, when you get to some of that collaborative intelligence and feeding back insights to folks, they actually get to stretch part of their brains that they maybe didn't have to use before, and it makes everything better as well. So I would also encourage you to say, hey, how can folks that we already have grow because of some of the AI?
Yeah, and we have customers with, 4 or 5 IVA ports, if you will, IVAs, and a very simple use case, and it's simple. You put it in. We have others on the other end of the spectrum that you've got a team of people that are managing it and monitoring it all day, continuously optimizing it and tuning it to be better and better. Because that's the thing. If you can get more and more customers to leverage it and utilize it, those resources pay for themselves very easily. Other questions? There's got to be more. Can't be that short one here.
I love questions. Questions are my favorite. So one of the things I'm curious about from a slalom perspective is oftentimes there's great ideas about a particular solution that may involve solving a business problem across multiple business lines, sometimes being based in the call center. That's hard. How does slalom help someone in the call center who can see the problem, can identify the problem? How do you help them span those lines of business to come up with a solution?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it sort of leads back to what I said is there's so much data and so much information, is being able to boil down the insights in a way that's simple and understandable for people to realize, hey, I can take this and actually do something within some other line of part of the business to create the impacts. One of the things we love to do when we're talking to our clients is talk about what impact do they want to create. Let's talk about what that outcome is they want to have, what impact they think they can create, and then talk about how to get there, and bringing folks together in terms of the expertise across the different parts of the business, whether it's in supply chain or whether it's in sales or right, and being able to bring those insights to them and show them how they can use those to improve overall is something that we definitely do all the time.
Yeah, I would say is, again, someone who's been in the contact center for 25 years, if you just think about the relationship we have with the rest of the enterprise, it doesn't really make sense, but we've kind of just accepted it. I can think back to 15 years ago, I'm running a contact center, and I'm on a conference call getting yelled at by marketing because calls are waiting. And the irony of that interaction is I didn't tell these customers to call me. They're calling me because what you did. You sent out this flyer, you didn't tell me about it, and now we are here. So we've played defense for so long, and now is the time, I think, your question about how we can help is we can do a better job than our clients at times at articulating that the contact center does not generate one single interaction. It comes from the middle office, back office, all of these other broken processes. And if the future of where we're headed is that we're not just going to sit back and wait for people to call and try to eliminate the human, and we're talking about playing offense now, then the conversation then changes. The seat at the table we have now as contact center leaders is changed. So now it's about how can we utilize these processes, the data and AI, to identify the source of these issues and complaints. I often say, like, the best phone call that your customer makes to you, they probably wish it didn't happen, even if it goes really, really well. So changing the mindset of not being this kind of sitting back and just taking the abuse, if you will, but instead showing up and saying, gosh, we can prevent these problems. We have the data because we see the downstream effects. Now let's go put in a business case and rally around, and then we can bring together all the folks at the table to now have a more one company solution versus the contact center just putting out the fires here. We can begin to attack the root causes of them.
Yeah, and I guess it also, if I think about the fact that we were talking about starting with sort of the human in mind and starting with that human design, if you can help make sure the whole organization is thinking that way, it then becomes a really easy conversation because I know what the humans are thinking. We've got those insights. Let's go back and talk about what do we need to do across the organization to make that better. And you're all working to solve the same problems.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? There's got to be some. 2 questions from the same person.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
So, in your opinion, what should also companies and organizations think of when they're trying to weigh out whether or not to use Five9's AI versus using a Snap-on competitor or one of the partner units instead of using it directly through Five9?
Yeah, I'll start that one, and you
for
can
it.
add. I think it's critically important. There are lots of boutique specialized companies that are popping up left and right. I think Rowan mentioned that in his opening today. And while some of them have specialties in one specific use case or one specific area, the key there is you're going to build rules and build logic that's going to get to your data, and even external data that's not your data, from whatever application that one provider delivers. The challenge is you're going to come up with many different and new use cases. And if they only have one specialty, then guess what? You're going to have somebody else or come back to Five9 and say, it's kind of like building your contact center, right? You have an ACD with a fully integrated IVR and all the other ancillary features that come with it. When you try to cobble that together with too many vendors that are in the middle of this, it can get very complex and difficult, and most people end up going to more of an end-to-end approach. Now, I say that in the sense that if you can accomplish what you can from that single source, I always encourage it, because it's already going to be, the integration work is going to be pre-integrated, like with reporting. It's all going to be there. The data is going to be absorbed and ingested into our reporting and analytics engine. Whereas external, you'll have to build that integration. You're going to have APIs that export certain data that we would build right into that as part of our solution. And you're probably already taking APIs from Five9 and exporting them for other purposes. So you've got a lot of commonalities and the business practices that your team probably already does on Five9 that are repeatable, that you don't have to learn a whole new way and a whole new system. So the other caution against those companies is, boy, there's a lot of them right now that I would be nervous about making it just because of today's economy and the way things have slowed in certain areas, that some of them may either get acquired, and if they get acquired by a competitor that's not Five9, and all of a sudden you've got two competing, so you end up with a lot of business conflicts that could occur. But I would focus in more on the application you're trying to accomplish and recognize that there's going to be a whole lot of new applications and use cases that you're going to want to accomplish. Now, we may not have all the answers, and we don't, and all the technologies that you're looking for, but we often can bring one of those boutique partners into the fold and enhance what we're delivering for you. And that way, the control is on us and the burden is on us to make sure that we're bringing in the right team. Rather than having competing agendas and be working against one another. So I just see it working much more smoothly when we're kind of your prime, and then we can help either recommend, and we don't have to supply everything and have it on our paper, but we can oftentimes recommend a partner that we've already integrated with and vetted their solution and certified it to work effectively with our solution.
Yeah, I would say part of the reason we love this partnership with Slalom, we work with about 400 partners, so we can be Switzerland at times. The word I want to say to you is co-opetition, which means they cooperate when it makes sense, and then you compete when it makes sense. That's the world we live in. There are so many competing technologies that claim to do the exact same things, and you can find yourself, which is why we stay pretty busy, you can find yourself trying to figure out what should I use. But to Dan's point, two things I'll key off of that. One is you make a bet around a platform. And so you looked at Five9 at some point and said, I want to bet on this platform. And so you've made that decision. So there's no sense in overcomplicating it. Then it becomes about what the use case is and what you're trying to accomplish. And so the question is, if Five9 can do what I've accomplished and this is a platform bet, why complicate my life? If on the other hand, the answer is no, all right, then it's co-opetition, right? You bring in the complementary products, but you also need to be careful that that product I've just brought in, that's not a platform bet. This is a use case bet. I am bringing this thing in to solve this part. And then in your decision makings around platform, right? It's stability of the company. There's all this matrix we guide clients to. But I think just embrace the idea, and not all solution providers have. I think Five9 has done a fantastic job. Dan, you can give me the $20 later, of embracing co-opetition. I mean, they are openly talking about better together and partnerships. Not all platforms have embraced that model. You just heard Dan say, yeah, we will bring in partners we potentially compete with to make sure you get to where you want to go.
And trust me, we can't build everything. We don't want to build everything. In fact, there's many use cases and applications of these software tools where it's just going to appeal to a very small percentage of our base. Well, we don't want to spend the R&D dollars and put it through our process to productize that. And we may not have a partner that has that, and that's why we have the Slalom and other partners that can help bring the right partner to bear, and they can usually expedite that integration for us, and even do it in many cases. But it's bringing in the right players. We're not afraid to have others. This is an ecosystem solution always. It's not trying to say, oh, let us do it. If we can recommend somebody because we've worked with them before and it's a proven integration, we might be able to shorten that window to get it to production or reduce the cost to integrate. But if we don't have a solution, we're going to turn to our partners and say, help. And that's when that comes into play.
Yeah, you both mentioned thinking about the use cases, and definitely we would start there. We'd also start with the simplest solution is usually the best solution. But think about, yes, the cost of the integrations, but then also the cost of maintaining is some of the things that you need to think about if you're going to choose something different than the platform you already have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any others? No more questions. It's a big crowd. All right. Well, with that, any last parting comments for our audience around kind of your view, Slalom's view on where does the future take us? You made one point, Carrie, earlier about, wow, if the AI and the IVAs can be even better than a human from a service standpoint, we've hit the holy grail. Any other insights that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I do think someday we will get there, sort of that utopia place, but it starts with making sure that you're putting that human in the center. So whether it be the employee experience or the customer experience or whatever it is, it's people that are what's important. I have talked many years ago about how data doesn't drive decisions, people do. So making sure that the people are in the center of whatever you're doing, you're going to be more successful here. It's one of the things that I would put. And I know you've got some other thoughts too.
Yeah, get started. This it's here. It's not a future thing. Shameless plug. We have a workshop around this from 4 to 6. We'll go deep. And then to Carrie's point about the humans, we are too myopically focused on the end customer and then sometimes the frontline agent. There's a whole back office there. We're too focused on the interactions parts. And even when you think about the contact center agent, I think the biggest challenge if you are a job, it's a tough job being an agent, is the cognitive load. I am on this phone call. I need to remember to build rapport and check the screen and do all of these things. And so thinking about the human and saying, I know you are struggling. It's hard for you to focus on building rapport with the customer and delivering that experience. Can I use this automation to just make your life easier? Can I make your cognitive load a lot less? And while the ROI of how many calls you're saving might seem nebulous, improving that employee experience where you have a more engaged employee drives your customer satisfaction and will give you that efficiency you're looking for. So I'll just leave you with the get started. The technology is not emergent, it's not coming, it's here. And don't overcomplicate it. Start where you are and build from there.
just to pile one thing on that, as we talked about years ago, we would talk about that AI is a competitive advantage. It's actually table stakes now. So to your point of get started, because if you're not doing it, you're going to be surpassed and blown past. But it allows you to be able to create those better tomorrows for all that we told you that's really important to us as Slalom. And yes, all, not just your customer, but also your employees from all parts of your business. And so get started because it's here.
I think that get started theme has been very well planted on the group here. But I want to say thank you both very much for your time today, but really thank you for the partnership. Slalom has created so many great outcomes for our customers. Encourage you to work with these folks, engage them. They can help us all. They can help you get started and help you find the opportunities and apply our technology in many cases better than we can, because they've seen it from many, many different angles and a different lens than we do. So thank you very much to both of you, Carrie. Pleasure.
So much.
Amos, thank you. Big round of applause.